Off with your head.
Hello folks, and welcome to Dice Chatter. My name is Donnie, and today I wanted to try out and make an imposing, elevated, and modular build. I didn't know exactly what to call this creation, a pyramid, risers, ancient steps, or the throne of the beheaded? Either way, I had a little inspiration after playing some Frostgrave with my wife. The more and more I look at the table all set up, I feel there is a need for some centerpiece type structures. And there are few scenarios where a pyramid-type building needs to be represented on the tabletop, so why not take a little inspiration from the ancient Mayan culture, examine their craftsmanship, engineering, and the passage of time on the beautiful Chichen Itza, and get cracking on a new terrain project. So without further ado, let's get crafting. About 98% of this build will be constructed using your typical insulation foam that you can snag up at any home improvement store. So while I cut out some big old bricks, I'll throw the dimensions for the basic foundation on the screen now. The proxon is a bit small for the biggest block we are cutting out, so using a knife to get it near perfect will do just fine, and by the end we will have 3 decently large squares as our foundation. Unfortunately, I only had 1-inch thick insulation foam at the time, so I made sure to adhere to similar size pieces together using some construction adhesive. I grabbed a bunch of heavy tabletop RPG books to weigh these puppies down and let the glue do its job. All the while, we can start to think about how we need to make a set of stairs so our miniatures have something to climb. Knowing the size of the outer bricks we'll be gluing down over each step, I can easily create an inner shell on the proxon, slicing out layer upon layer. Then we glue those bad boys together and slam them on our foam cuboid. Though in addition to the stairs, we need those nice beveled edges that surround the sides of each cuboid. To get that perfect right triangle, we use the proxon and adjust the angle of the wire and make sure it matches up with the height of the sidewalls, which are 2 inches. These triangular prisms don't need to be perfect or exact. In some later steps, we'll be covering these things up with bricks. And just like the stairs, we attach them to the side walls, and slowly our creation is beginning to take shape. Oh, Proxon, my dear old friend, we need 1 billion bricks once again. This is a big project that has 3 distinct areas: the stairs, walls, and the floors. I decided to make the bricking theme very chaotic along the walls and floors, though for the stairs I wanted to keep things simple. I'm doing this for 2 reasons. I wanted to see if this method of bricklaying is interesting to the eye, and I wanted to test my mental fortitude. Oh, and let's not forget the good old rock tumbler method to give these pink bricks some needed texture. This is a nice way to give the illusion you are looking at some busted up rocks and stones. And let's not forget to weigh these foam blocks down with some coins you never expect to use ever again. Only 50 cents for each square to give it some proper weight, and we just hot glue these guys in to hold everything in place. So our foundation is set. So now let's start building up these terrain pieces by tackling the stairs. We take the bricks we cut out earlier and start hot gluing them down in a nice staggered fashion. I pretty much use hot glue for everything during this build because I wanted to get things moving along, but I see no issue using white or PVA glue if you want more time to adjust and move the foam around. Also, don't forget to grab your hobby knife and clean up the edges as my camera goes in and out of focus here. Only top-notch cinematics here on Dice Chatter. Anywho, I also make sure to mark and cut out the outer sides of the stairs because we're also going to lay down some more bricks and give these steps a little bit more definition. We stagger these as well, and the steps now look awesome and are perfect for leading wonderful models to higher platforms. The walls are next, and for that we go steal some printer paper out of the printer and figure out the general dimensions of each side wall for each of the platforms. We then transfer those dimensions to the printer paper we stole and began the long and chaotic bricklaying process. Again, I stick with hot glue during all of this because I like to live life on the edge, though I truly did find this to be easier than PVA glue. White glue, you can get away with a few mistakes here and there as you have more time to adjust and move bricks around, but it's just so slow, and it can really warp the paper we are gluing the foam bricks to. Once you have glued everything down, you cut out your rectangle of chaotic bricks and make sure it lines up well with the wall and glue the bastard down. Then of course, rinse and repeat over all of the 3 modular shapes we have created and on each of its sides. This process definitely takes a minute since we are laying down each individual brick, but at the end of the day, I personally still haven't found a technique I truly enjoy that I believe looks better. So I stick with what I'm used to, and our terrain building is starting to look really nice. Just like the walls, we need to create an interesting stone layout on top. And to be honest, we stick to a very similar setup. But this time around, we focus on using a lot more of the larger, more square-shaped foam bricks we cut out on the Proxon earlier. I tend to focus on the outer edge first, getting all those squares down, and then from there I just go row by row or column by column and fill out the top of these pyramids. There is some creative freedom here that you could implement by making a neat stone design in the center of each of these modular sections, but this build is a practice run for myself. I didn't want this to take 2 months to finish because then I'd never get any videos out to you fine folks. And just like the walls, this is a long process that puts some strain on the mental fortitude, but if I can get through these steps, I'm sure you strong-willed folks can do the same. We're almost there with the construction being finished, but we're missing one more thing before we can start painting, and that is dealing with these open corners. Just so happened, I finished the little guy I placed just on top right there, so let's go through the steps on how I got to that point. We quickly cut out some rectangular prisms that will fit well in the open corners. Then we texture these shapes with the good old foil ball and hobby knife. Go as ruined as you like and make sure to texture all the sides that are going to be visible on the terrain piece. From here, we purchased some gargoyles from Reaper Bones that I thought would look great to sit on top of these ruined corners. Of course, hot glue everything in place, and I found it wasn't a bad idea to add a handful of foam bricks at the bottom of the corners. It is a neat way to show that these sections used to be filled up with stone bricks in years past, and now it is just a stone husk. And with these corners and bricks all set in place, we can finally head on over to painting. I decided I wanted to try something different this time around with the painting. I did a little experimentation with colors and using some different materials, and I will say I'm not necessarily sold if I like the final look of the paint job. Maybe in the future I could do a stone painting experimentation video. Let me know if that'd be something you'd be interested in seeing. Anywho, we start things off with your typical black prime and then a white ink zenithal highlight. From here, I'd normally do a brown ink over everything, but decided to change it up and go with a burnt sienna. I actually really like this burst of interesting color and think this option would work well with any brown colored terrain piece. Then begins the stippling and dry brushing galore process over each modular shape. I start with a chestnut color first, then switch it up to a lighter gray, and then back on over to a darker beige. All of these colors are going on pretty heavy, so no need to be neat and tidy with this step, just go wild. Following this, we take a dark maroon as well as the beige and gray we were just using and go around painting random stone bricks here and there. No need to go around repainting each and every brick by hand, choose a dozen or so spots for each color and move on to the next one. Also knowing that in the next couple steps we are going to be desaturating much of the paint job, these extra pops of color are perfect for boosting up your paint scheme to another level with minimal effort. And at this point, you could decide to stop painting here, but we want to give a little bit more realism to the stone structure. Spackle, joint compound, drywall compound, whatever you want to call it, this is the goop that will hold our stones together. We get ourselves a crappy brush and a little bit of water to thin down the spackle and give our terrain piece a big once-over. Any areas where I feel like too much spackle has been used, which is pretty much everywhere, we come on by with a paper towel to wipe away the excess. As the spackle takes its time to dry, the bright white will fade just a touch, and because we spread it over everything on this build, it will also slightly desaturate your paint job. This is all part of the process, so no need to worry. I gave everything a day to dry before we move on over to griming the hell out of this ancient pyramid. So we grab a few contrast paints that I thought would give some good pigment pops on this terrain build, and with this green, brown, and yellow, we can really start to revitalize the paint job, creating mold, refuse, and some much needed detritus. Never thought I'd be so happy about painting on poop. Either way, think about areas where dirt and debris would build up. Water flows through cracks in the stones and eats away at the rocks over time. Make sure the grime step here reflects the power of Mother Nature, and after you feel like Mama Nature has done her worst, I do a very light dry brush of a cream color over everything just to make the edges of the stone pop once again. Treat this step like an archaeologist who has just uncovered some ancient artifact. Dust the brush over the terrain build and it should work out great. And to finish off the pyramid, we come through with a few different colored inks and decide to start making magical doorways and runes all over the place. I tend on using these structures for Dungeons and Dragons as well as Frostgrave, so giving each section a bit of colorful spark is perfect for those settings. And it never hurts to write out a message with someone's blood. Finally, we add just a touch of sand and PVA glue over some areas on the top of each modular structure, and we can call this terrain build complete. Well folks, there you have it, my take on a modular pyramid. I feel like as we check out these glamour shots, I'll touch on what I enjoyed most and least about the finished product. For the good stuff, I love the chaotic nature of the stone bricks on the walls and the floors. It may have taken some extra time, but it looks fun and different from your common bricklaying build. The paint job, I will say, is actually growing on me. At first I wasn't too fond of how it turned out, but I'm starting to like it. It's not the normal gray theme you always see, and it's a nice little bonus in my book. For the things that didn't turn out like I imagined, one was definitely the addition of the gargoyles. These topper models are great, and I wanted to portray them as if they were cut and carved from the same stone that they rest upon, but in my opinion, they kind of just look like a bit of mush resting in the corners. Maybe painting them brass or bronze and patina the hell out of them would have been a better idea. Overall, I am happy with the build, and I am excited to use this one on the tabletop. Let me know what you all think of the build by hopping over to the Discord, or maybe you can leave a spicy comment that I can giggle at and respond to. Either way, don't forget to subscribe and check out the Patreon if that tickles your fancy. Until next time, folks, I want to thank you all for watching, and of course, happy gaming.